Tara, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing so well.
Great.
I'm pumped to talk about this. So look, you and I got connected for a number of reasons, but I'm really interested in your project and your organization because you guys are committed to helping with family planning. Now, that is synonymous, so like Planned Parenthood, how it's been criticized like roundly for years and years and years and years. People hate it. And the number one thing, I have a lot of very conservative friends and they very much hated the elective pregnancy terminations. And what I've always been interested in is since Idaho eliminated abortions, I'm like, shouldn't Planned Parenthood have gone from the most reviled organization in some people's minds to the most beloved organization, like in a heartbeat? Because if you don't want abortions and then you probably don't want unplanned pregnancies and you want people to have control over their health, this is a great organization. And of course, people don't see it that way, but your focus is on promoting education, contraceptive access, and just overall control over reproductive future.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we are trying to step away from what is happening and what has been happening for a really long time, which is conflating the issues of abortion with contraceptives. And they're two different things.
And if I may, I don't mean to interrupt already. You are not Planned Parenthood. I brought that up just because it's one of those things. You and I got connected.
Sure.
I've been very interested about this problem of what about the people promoting contraceptives? Shouldn't we be showcasing them and highlighting their great work at every turn to promote control and fewer unwanted pregnancies?
Absolutely. And I think it's so important in so many people's lives, right? And so that's where ICEN was born, the Idaho Contraceptive Education Network, is we really wanted to focus the attention on contraceptive access, on education around contraceptives. It's a big deal. It's a big deal now. It's a big deal for women, and it's a big deal for families. I mean, it has so many implications for people. And I think what helps with our organization, too, is we wanted something local. We wanted something that was not necessarily a national organization, but that understood Idahoans and understood families here, understood our culture, which includes acceptance of responsibility and family planning and having control over your future. And so I think that's what makes this organization really great. And the network that we have been able to create has been very exciting for us because there's a lot of like-minded people out there who are really all in on this.
With contraceptive being in the broader concept of responsibility around who's responsible for birth control, essentially. This came into, excuse me, and I could be off on this, but wasn't this one of the big talking points with Obamacare, right? The Affordable Care Act made it so that insurance carriers had to cover, I'm pretty sure, like birth control. And there was a large criticism of that option because men were like, why should my insurance dollars be going to something that like I'll never get benefit for? And I could be off. I remember, again, I was a younger man at the time, but it is a broader, the answer that I remember is that, look, this is a broader societal good, right? Like, even though you may never be requiring, let's say birth control for you. And do you guys cover all male and female contraceptives?
Yeah, we talk about contraceptives across the board.
Great.
Yep.
But it's like, listen, this is something that benefits everybody. If more people, male and men and women, both have control over when and how they want to have families, that's a really, really valuable thing for society as a whole, right? So with taking everything you've said into consideration, when you're looking at a local push, when you're looking at, hey, we need an Idaho solution for Idaho, what has ICEN been doing? Like boots on the ground? Is it, high school education? Is it just a broader community outreach? Like how do you actually promote education and access?
So we do a couple of things. We do show up to different community events around the state and try and educate the people there on what is contraceptive, what qualifies as a contraceptive. What does that actually mean?
What qualifies as a contraceptive?
Yeah, what are
I'm just curious now.
All the different types of contraceptives,
okay.
Right? Condoms are contraceptives.
Sure.
Right. And we know about birth control pills and we know about IUDs or another form of contraceptive. So we want to go out in those communities at those events and really represent and say, hey, put aside what you thought was a contraceptive and what isn't. And I think one of the biggest ones when you're talking about the male population is like, that's what condoms are.
Right.
Condoms are contraceptives. And so I think one of the big pushes for us is to be present and to make our presence known throughout the state and throughout different locales. The other thing that we've done, boots on the ground, is to get supporters in, people who are also as concerned about making sure that contraceptive access exists in the state and continues to exist. So building out our network of people throughout the state, of partners who are going to help us get the word out. We provide resources on our website. We provide pamphlets. We'll go on shows like this, which are amazing and we're so thankful for, because we want to get the word out as best possible. And a lot of what we're noticing is a lot of conversations, conflate these issues of abortion and contraceptives, and then people back away. And you see that this like regression of, and then they're like, well, should we really have contraceptives? That's the same thing as an abortion. It's not.
Who says that? That's the dumbest thing ever.
I know.
I'm sorry.
Well,
I don't know exactly who I'm insulting, but anybody who says abortion is the same as like a condom, it's like those are polar opposites.
Yeah, and sometimes it's not even around the condom, but it's around like IUDs, for instance, and that is a lack of education, a lack of understanding of how these devices work. And I think that's our big push is like, folks, we got to talk basics, right? We got to go in and talk about what do these actually do? How do they function? Because there is this recoil effect sometimes that turns people off, and then they stop listening. And you're like, no, let's start from ground zero here. And it is surprising. I mean, to your point, it's really surprising. You would think that, everyone knows what a contraceptive is and how it functions. And that's not always the case. And I think the other problem and issue we run to is that people don't know what they don't know. And sometimes it's embarrassing to ask the questions, especially with men. Sometimes don't want to be a part of that conversation.
Can I ask a question?
Sure. Ask all the questions.
Okay. Before we go off, I got to understand. Okay, so obviously you have classic forms of contraception. Condom, preventing genes from mixing, right? Birth control, even if genes mix, preventing that ensures that you have a shedding of the uterine lining and you go through a menstrual cycle, right? Like that's the whole nature of that, because it's controlling hormones. With an IUD, why would people, like, how does that function in a manner that people think it's analogous to an abortion? Is it like akin to having a day after pill every single day, or like, what is that?
So an IUD, and again, not a doctor here.
Sure.
So, but generally speaking, an IUD is a device. It's an intrauterine device. It's inserted in, and some of them have small trace amounts of hormones. Some of them do not. They'll have copper on there.
Okay.
And so what it does is it prevents fertilization of the egg. I mean, it's a prevention of pregnancy in a number of different ways. But
prevention of pregnancy is a very specific. That's a broader term than preventing fertilization. Correct. Because if you're preventing pregnancy, that's an embedded fertilized egg successfully growing. But preventing fertilization is no. The egg never even mixes successfully with the sperm cells, so you never have a viable, life begins at inception. So there's a distinction there. So you're saying the IUD prevents fertilization.
Correct. Correct.
Okay, so that's where the misunderstanding around, this is like a lightweight abortion because there is a fertilized egg and you're preventing it from becoming embedded.
Correct. And I think, the science behind that. So one of the things that we're trying to do is engage the medical community as well, because we want that to be explained by people who are credible, right? Yeah. I mean, I'm a lawyer, smarter than me. I'm a lawyer. That's great. Sure. I know what I'm doing in the legal field, but I'm not a doctor. And but having our local doctors and physicians come in and talk about that and talk about the differences, I think is really critical and important. I think that is a fundamental misunderstanding. It's like, is it or isn't fertilized? What happens there? And those are the questions that I think are not being asked. We don't have these conversations in the mainstream, I think, as much as we should be having these conversations in the mainstream media or whatever, out in the community. They're just not happening. Instead, what's happening is people are closing off and retreating.
Okay. I've never gone to an event where I advocated for, birth control. Okay. But I could imagine, and especially because all I did was SAT prep before I moved here. So I was dealing with 16, 17, 18-year-olds all the time. Dude, there was this one kid. It's hilarious. He just graduated from college, I think. And this guy would sit at one of the tables, and there was this girl in the class with him. His name was Brandon. Great guy. Really enjoyed him. And when this girl would come and sit at the same table, this 6-foot wide table, it was literally like a magnet. Like the kid could not sit, like he would just start sliding. And I knew it was going to happen. I was like, oh my God, like I had to separate them. And she would dress like it was 110 degrees outside every day, all day, no matter, even if it was 7 degrees, like still 110 in her head. So every time she came in, I'm like, oh, did you see the new hoodies I got? Like here, put on a hoodie, right? Trying to help Brandon out. But the point is like, you're dealing with a charged population, not just underage people, but you're dealing with, you know, people that are drawn to each other. And even with that, acknowledging that, I've found that some people don't want to engage in the admission that there are people that are having underage sex, and that it's almost like if you sit down with them and you're like, all right, look, man, here are a bunch of condoms. That's tacit approval and support for an action that you may consider immoral or compromising. So it's like, no, I'm not going to sit down with you and talk to you about different contraceptive options, prophylactics, or whatever you want to call it. It's like, I'm not going to have that conversation with you because I don't agree with what you're doing. And it's almost like, okay, great. You can disagree with it and hold yourself back from having that conversation. That does not mean that the action is not going to be carried out. And I'm not in support. I'm not saying that like a bunch of 16-year-olds should be running around having sex. They certainly shouldn't. Like I think by every metric of teen health, when you have more people having more sex at younger ages, that's a number one indicator of like poorer teen health, both mental, physical, the whole thing, right? So like that's not great. But also, it's like it's going to happen. So how do you address it in a responsible manner without articulating like tacit approval? This seems to be the big question.
Yeah. And I think part of that too is we have to educate parents. I mean, even parents and grown adults are having a difficulty or a fundamental misunderstanding of how these devices and things work. So, you know, it's at all levels of society, which is why, you know, we need to broaden this conversation. We really need to educate society as a whole, Idaho as a whole, on what contraceptives are and how they act and how and the ramifications of this. I mean, like what you were just talking about, right? It has societal ramifications beyond, you know, what we initially look at in broad brushstrokes. But like, think about it. Someone has a child, unplanned pregnancy. Maybe you're not in a financial state to have another child or a child right now. Right. You're building up, you're coming out of, you know, college with debt or grad school with debt. You're not able to
going into college,
or you're going into college, or you're, you know, you're supporting extended family, you know, multi-generational kind of situations where, you know, prices are going up and, you know, generations are moving together a little bit more with older parents and all that. I mean, there's a number of different situations where you're just not in the financial spot. So what happens? Like, what is the spider web that goes out from that? And I think this is part of the conversation that needs to happen too. Part of that is, okay, well, are we having more reliance on other programs? Entitlement programs? Are we having, what's that doing to the rest of that community? What does that mean for paying other bills? What does that mean for meeting other obligations? What does that mean for being able to be employed and remain employed? You know,
and employment options.
Exactly. All sorts of things, right? And so, you know, it's this, it seems like this, like it should be a narrow issue. It's not. It impacts everybody. It impacts communities and it impacts this entire state, which is why we're so passionate about getting out there and talking to people about it, because it's like, you got to take a step back and see the full picture here. And I think that's often lost in the conversation as well.
You're sitting in front of somebody and this person takes a position that they don't know much about contraceptives and they think that they're only utilized by people in an inappropriate manner. If you're not financially viable to have a kid, you shouldn't be having sex. If you're out of wedlock, you should not be having sex. If you're whatever it is, they take this hard line with it's your responsibility and I'm not interested in participating. Like, how do you address that?
Well, I mean, what does that look like, right? So what are we going to do? Do carve out exceptions on who gets access to contraceptives and who doesn't? I mean, it's like if you're trying to create categories of people that you shouldn't be having sex, you're, unwed or whatever your situation is, like that is not a place that we should be getting into. We should not be getting into people's private lives. What we're concerned about is making sure that access remains the same for contraceptives for anyone. People need to make their own choices about their own family life and family planning. And I don't think it's appropriate. I mean, it's certainly, I'm a Republican, and I think that government should not be getting into people's private lives, what's going on in there. And I should not be dictating to anybody when they should or should not, be engaging in whatever behavior to start or not start a family. Like that's not my role. And so, ICEN's goal really is and what we're trying to put out there in the world is contraceptive access should exist, and it should be for anyone who believes that they need and they want to control these outcomes. That's it.
Taking this position, because a lot of the conversations I've been having, I had Bree Derrick on, who's the director of Idaho Department of Corrections, on Friday. She was fantastic, by the way, like dynamite. That episode's coming out soon. I was blown away by this woman. I was like, holy cow, great shot. What I found interesting about that particular type of conversation is, or that concept, right? Corrections and what we're doing is you have a moral problem there as well, or a morality problem, or a perception problem, in that you have people that have committed broken laws. You've committed crimes and they're bad. And now you're in, prison. Okay. And that character just right out of the blocks does not rouse a lot of sympathy from the general populace. It's like, you broke a law, you're a prisoner in the Department of Corrections. No, I don't feel bad for you. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying people should, but the problem is, the knee-jerk reaction to it's like, I don't care about this person at all. Let them sleep on the ground and eat bread crust. Like, I don't care. The problem with that is that if you're also a fiscally responsible person, that's a bad position to have, because what you ultimately need to do is figure out, okay, this person has done a crime. They need to pay for it, whatever the justice might be, as determined by the court system. But we also need to make sure that this person has all of the tools required, or at least some tool required, to engage the world in a meaningful manner so as never to return here, right? And we all understand, teach a man how to fish. Mm-hmm. Don't just give him a fish, teach him how to fish. Give him a tool set that he can then go and provide for himself in an acceptable manner, right? Like that's a really important thing. But you get into that conflict of morality, sure, which is like, I don't feel bad for this person. I don't want to give them anything more, but I have this financial problem over here because if I treat him poorly or her poorly, that person is more likely return to my care, and I'm going to have to pay like $60,000 a year. And I see the same kind of thing that you're getting at, which is, look, we are going to have a higher cost to social services. We're going to have a lower economic productivity. We're going to have more people dependent on part-time labor and not investing in the labor. We're going to have to draw more aggressively from out of state to fill these full-time careers. I have the director of INL coming on at the end of, I believe, the end of July or something. And it's like, that's going to be a piece of the conversation. Are you getting enough employment base out of the state of Idaho? What else do you need from the education system? Like, how can we employ and make sure everybody at INL is a qualified employee from Idaho? That would be great, right? But that's one of these things, which is, hey, if you want to spend less on social programs, and if you want to worry less about, daycare, and you want to worry less about all these things, you should be worrying about contraceptive access.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, we want to empower people, right? We want to empower people. We want to empower families. We want to set them up for success.
No, I don't think people care about that.
But that is what people should care about, right?
Okay, but listen, Tara, listen. Yeah, maybe people should, but that doesn't rouse action from me. The selfish individual sitting in front, I'm like, yeah, empower people. I'm not going to pay money to empower anybody. But what I will do is I'll spend $5 to make sure I don't have to spend $100 over here. Mm-hmm. That's the question that people should be asking.
Right.
What's the financial ROI, right? As a fiscally conservative state, what's the ROI on making sure more people have contraceptive access?
Absolutely.
That's an ROI that's profound. And that's one, for me, the selfish person in front of you, like, okay, I can get behind this. No, I don't care about empowering you. Nope, I don't care about this. No, I don't care about that. What's my personal value proposition? And that's a huge thing. We have a huge problem with that in this state. We're like a net draw on the federal government for like federal programs and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to push back a little bit on that though, and say, yeah, but empowerment in this situation especially actually does do what you're talking about. I mean, what happens when we empower people, right? What happens when we empower them to make the choices on when to start a family and when not to start a family? Well, they're productive. They get to go do those things and go out into society and get employed and be productive members of society, which does what? Which lowers the costs in other avenues, right? In other places, which is exactly what we're talking about. So I think they're both tied together.
Listen, I think that word empowerment, I'm like, yeah, like I can't, like it gets me a little bit like that doesn't, it's like, no. Can somebody keep working? Can somebody invest more in their career? Can they invest more in themselves? Can they focus on better health, better decisions, better all these things? That's what matters to me.
And better outcomes, right?
And better outcomes, financial and societal outcomes. Like that's what's really important. And
Absolutely.
if you have more of that, like you're an attorney. Where'd you go to school?
U of I.
Okay, great. And then for law school, U of I as well?
I'm sorry, U of I Law School, U of A undergraduate, University of Arizona.
Great. Okay, great. So here's that within higher education. All right, because again, I was in higher ed admissions for my whole career. You see overwhelmingly communities that have higher populations with two-parent households have way better college and higher education outcomes, right? Classically Asian American households have fewer single-parent households, have more like both parents working, and they have like overwhelming success in higher education. And if you could enable or empower people to make sure, look, if you want to have a kid, it's the time, the place, and with the person that you want, you're going, and that works for both men and women. Right. Because everybody remembers like Maury Povich, like, is he the father? Like, and those dads who were not the father, man, I don't know what they felt. May have been empowerment, but they danced off the stage. Right. Do you ever find yourself going down like rabbit holes on social media from that old school trash? Like I went down this Judge Judy rabbit hole for like a month. It was like a year and a half ago. And TikTok got me. It was like, I know what to send this.
Oh, I stay away from that. I can't. I would be,
it was actually
I would be watching like 90s sitcoms or something. It
was. But I think Judge Judy's still going strong. I think I think she still has the same court officer too, that big dude. And she's always talking to him and he's talking back. And like Judge Judy's still snappy. They got another Judge Judy who's this like African-American woman who's like sharp as hell and just talks trash like crazy. It's fantastic. But like I find myself going down those rabbit holes. Like what in the hell is going on with the world? But again, ironically, a lot of those things come down to like custody cases and like you have a lot of people that either had a child with somebody they didn't want or they had a child with somebody at the wrong time, both men and women, and you can see the fallout. The outcome is not one that either of them want. They're standing in front of damn Judge Judy. Like it's not a good that's not your best day. It's like you dial 911 and you see Judge Judy. Those are your two worst days ever, right? But that's what's really important, right? Yeah. That's what enables people to be more strategic with their life, right? Yeah, and at the very least, not reactionary with their life. Even if I don't have a plan, even if I'm just like Matt rolling down the street, I still don't want to be Matt rolling down the street with a kid with some like strange lady. Like I'd rather just be Matt rolling down the street.
Well, you might still be figuring it out.
Yeah.
You might still be figuring it out. And
Hashtag,
people do.
I still am.
Yeah. I mean, I think we all are, right? I mean, we really all are. But I mean, yeah, you should have that ability and it shouldn't scare you off to have a conversation with your partner about contraceptive use and access as part of that. That has to be a conversation that has to be happening all the time. Like we need to do that. We need to make it commonplace to have that conversation. But part of it is like, we got to get away from the stigma that somehow contraceptives are a bad thing or something shameful and that we shouldn't talk about it.
Okay. Who are you talking to that is shameful or trying to shame people? Or they think they're terrible. Like when you keep talking about education, like I'm sold. Like I did not want, my wife and I did not, even when we were married, we did not want to have a child before we were ready. And we did not a single one of our kids were accidents or unplanned. And it was funny, like going to talk to, different physicians over the course of our time. Some of them would be like, oh, well, as if like implying that like maybe one of our kids was a surprise or not a mistake, but a surprise. And then it was like, well, I guess they're all spaced. Well, no, I guess Yeah, okay. You obviously planned this out. It's like, yeah, man, we're planners.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
but
we
like,
had-
who are you talking to that's shameful or trying to shame or put down this? Because it doesn't make sense to me. Like, who's that person?
Well, I think that, I mean, if we look across nationally at this conversation, we've certainly seen states and areas where access to contraception has been a hot button issue, and they're trying to dial it back. States are trying to dial it back.
Wait, who?
Well, I mean, I would say Texas for one.
They're trying to dial back. They're like, we need fewer Trojans.
There have been some misguided bills and legislation where, people are really not understanding. They'll have language in there, for instance, that has a collateral consequence on contraceptive access. And you're like, whoa, wait a minute. Nope. Hold on. Let's back it up and like actually think about this. Or
could I ask?
Yeah.
I don't know what you just said. They have language in a bill that has collateral consequence to I don't know what you're saying. So
let me say it.
There's like a cloud seeding bill, and they're like, if we see the contrails, we're getting rid of all condoms. And you're like, wait, what?
Well, it goes back to what we were talking about initially, which is this conflation of abortion and contraceptives.
Got it.
So there are some bills
Texas is very conservative with abortions.
They are, and I think it's a misunderstanding, it's a miseducation, and so broad language will be used in some of these bills that actually what they do, it's limiting contraceptive access. Some other places, we've heard that there have been more aggressive stances that are taken where they're like, no, it's natural family planning or nothing sort of mindset. And
what places are
well, I couldn't list them off the top of my head, but I think.
But you've seen legislation.
We've seen conversations around this, and that's what we want to talk about and really advance. Is like, no, contraceptives should be a right that everyone has, and they should have the ability to access it, and it shouldn't feel like this big, huge, scary thing or a misunderstanding of where it's lawful and where it's not lawful. I mean, we should have access to contraceptives across the board.
Now, when you say contraceptives should be a right that everyone has, I think, you don't view them as a right as in like you have the right to breathe oxygen. You're viewing them as you have a right to access.
Correct.
So that, for instance, something that would fly in the face of that is if there's legislation that's like, hey, you can only buy a pack of Trojans at the store if you're 18. Right. So people don't have access to it. Or like you should not be able to get birth control if you're, under a I don't know how that works, but is that the idea where it's like a 16-year-old can't request birth control from her physician, right? Or something like that.
Yeah, I'm speaking more broadly than that too. It's like the legislation or the bills that are being proposed here and there, and I don't have that list in front of me, but where we are curtailing or we're trying to limit access for people. Or I'll give you a recent example. We had a bill this last year that was signed into law where you could now get 6 months of birth control pills per prescription, 6 months of it.
Okay.
I mean, like that shouldn't be a conversation. And that bill was introduced several times before it finally got passed,
Wait,
and
so you're
signed
saying
into
in
law.
the state of Idaho, it was before this, you couldn't get a 6-month supply per visit. It was like a 3-month supply and then you had to go back.
Yeah. I mean, it's silly things like that where you're just like, of course you should. I mean, what's the big deal, right?
Well,
like,
there's
we should
also
have access there.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
But to this point, there's also the parental consent problem within the state of Idaho is also profound. Like there are instances where an individual who is underage is pregnant, right? So like a 17-year-old and delivering a child, and the 17-year-old cannot consent for her own medical care. She can consent for the care of her child. But like if she needs to go for a follow-up or something, her parent had to sign off on this. And I think it was like out of McCall or something. I can't remember exactly where it was, but that's a huge problem. So then talking about access, right? With the parental consent laws as they're written right now, theoretically, a 16-year-old without the parent's approval could not go into, the physician be like, hey, I'm 16. I would like birth control pills. And they're like, hey, man, your mom or dad has to sign off on this. And if you have parents that are not on board with that, then they're like, no, you can't have it because I don't believe morally in what you're doing, or for whatever reason, who knows? I'm not going to, ascribe motivations, but again, that's kind of what you're talking about, which is you should have access to it.
We're talking anyone who wants to have access to contraceptives should have access to contraceptives. That should be readily available, and they should have the ability to understand what they do and how they work.
Does that apply for, like, say a 12-year-old comes in, 12-year-old girl? She's like, I want birth control pills. And they're like, can't give you birth control pills, but here are a bunch of condoms. Like, would that check the box for you? You're like, nah, you should be able to prescribe hormone treatment to 12-year-old without parental consent.
Well, our focus with ICEN is not that.
Okay,
right now. I mean, that's not, we're not looking at minors right now. We think the big bite at the apple right now is educating adults.
Great. Okay.
I mean, you know
Fantastic.
what I mean? Like,
yeah.
we got to start, we have
Sure.
to start there. Like,
Sure.
we have to, the fact that adults are confused, grown adults are confused about what contraceptives are, what qualifies as a contraceptive and how they work. That's a big problem. And so that's why I'm talking about, like, the fundamental. We want to start fundamentals first and be like, hey guys, here's what it is. Let's lay it out on the table and have a conversation around it. We can't get to anything else, I think, without educating our adults about what contraceptives do and how they're beneficial both to you personally and to society at large.
So to that end, the big emphasis here, especially because it doesn't appear to me that or from my limited understanding, I wouldn't imagine that people don't understand the function of contraceptives. Like, they stop you from getting pregnant if you're having intercourse, right? Like, that's the broad thing. But it would appear that where the confusion is what's the mechanism that plays into, and that mechanism or confusion of that mechanism is what leads people to either engage or not engage in them based on, let's say, morality. Like, I don't want my girlfriend or my wife to get an IUD, or she doesn't want to get an IUD because we both think that's akin to an abortion. And it's that misunderstanding that you guys are coming after, which is like, no, that's not how this works.
Right.
And that way you have a moral framework to act in a manner that would support your desired outcome, which is no unplanned pregnancies, without compromising your moral or religious position.
Sure, exactly. And understanding and making a choice. I mean, just because there's access to contraceptives out there doesn't mean you have to do it. You can engage in whatever, you would like to do, but we shouldn't be limiting people's access to contraceptives, right? Everyone should be able to make a choice, and that choice should have available to it access.
Where is the work to be done with increasing access? Like, where are we seeing, we have OBGYN deserts, right, in the state of Idaho.
Yeah.
And we know the solution, where it's like, okay, over there, they don't have any OBGYNs. Let's get some. Where are there contraceptive deserts in the state of Idaho where people just don't have broader access?
I think there's a misunderstanding of what is lawful and what is not lawful and what contraceptives are. So yes, I would say it's a desert landscape. And I wouldn't just say Idaho, I would say nationally, there's kind of a desert landscape. And it's like, even having the conversation with your physician or your OBGYN or that's not even happening as frequently as it should be happening. So that's where we're really leaning in. We want to make it more commonplace. We want to make it an easier conversation. And contraceptives is not just, it doesn't just prevent pregnancies, right? There's all these other things that contraceptives are used for. For example, like, there are some people who have cysts, ovarian cysts, for instance, or, acne is another one. I mean, there's all these other things that it addresses.
Yeah, hormone regulation, the whole thing.
Right, exactly, across the board. And so it's a broader conversation to be had. And I think that there are just not enough people who understand it. And so when it comes up in conversation, people are shying away or shutting it down. And like I said, sometimes, there are bills or legislation that come across someone's desk and are introduced, and it's like, okay, but did we think about how this is going to affect access to contraceptives? Your language is too broad. Like, we need to really look at this and have that conversation. I think that's the best thing that people can do as well, is really be watching that and making sure that we are not limiting this.
I have a family member, actually, who was Catholic and married several kids, and whose physician was emphasizing, like, hey, you should get on birth control pill for this other unrelated health thing.
Yeah.
And her response immediately was, no, I'm Catholic. I don't believe in that. And the physician's answer was, no. go talk to your priest, explain that you're not trying to prevent pregnancy, but what you're trying to do is regulate this other, biological thing, right? Physical thing. And she did. And the priest was like, yeah, that's fine. Like totally fine. She was like, oh, great. So, unfortunately she jumped on him and then got pregnant like the next month. But it's just like, it takes a couple months to kick in, I guess.
Sure,
anyway, but yeah, like that's a clear case of misunderstanding where these things fall in line and what's tolerable and not. And again, everything worked out for my family member and the baby and everything. It was great. But again, it is exactly what you're saying, which is, hey, we, engage in the conversation, because you may have been, and I do this all the time. It's like, I think I know what the answer is. And then I like prevent myself from walking down a certain path. And then I find out later on, like, no, you idiot. It was fine. Like you just, whatever. Yeah. Anyway.
It's like a giant game of telephone, right? We don't want the giant game of telephone. We want to be a resource, and we want to provide resources where you don't have to play that game.
Right.
You can come in and you can have that. And so we've got a website that has resources on there. Like I said, we try and show up to events, and we always love when people are like, hey, there's a, community health function going on. Do you guys want to show up?
Right.
Like, we love those tips, because we do want to be there, and we do want to show up, and we do want to spread this information and be a resource and tool.
You have a website, you show up in person. Do you guys have like an Instagram page where you put out contraceptive information like every day?
Not every day. We don't, but we do have a Facebook site, and I believe we have an Instagram site as well. Yeah.
You gotta get on that.
I know.
I'm
not the person.
Listen to me. When is the last time you went on a website for like information?
Well, I'm an attorney. I do that all the time.
For your own personal consumption?
Yes, we do have a Facebook and an Instagram. People can find information there. We do try and push out information. Also, we do, our board members will do editorials as well. So you'll see like little opinion pieces pop up. And
Tara, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? This is 2025. We editorials? Like when's the last time you saw a paper?
We're hitting it all right? We're hitting it all. We're going to try and be omnipresent. We're going to be everywhere.
My gosh.
We're going to be everywhere.
It's going to be everywhere. I find the community, like I'm a communication nerd. Like I just think about it all day long. And one of the big things is like Secretary of State Phil McGrain. You ever been to his website?
Yes.
It's a fantastic website.
It's so great.
It's so impressive. It's so wild. I've been there twice. Both times he was showing me on his phone. And both times I was like, this is the sickest website ever. Like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. He's like, yeah, you can do this and do this. I'm like, I even told him, I was like, Phil, we could make like content every week showcasing different aspects of the, he's like, yeah, it'd be great. I have never been able to rouse myself to go there independently. And I love the website. I'm already bought in, but there's something about the nature of that style of communication where it's like, I don't want to like go through and like click on things and like get lost. Like, I don't know where it is, where the information is.
Sure.
And I think there are people like me, dum-dums like me, who just you have to communicate with them differently.
Yeah.
And like,
sure.
Yeah. I don't know.
Absolutely. Well, we are there. We are on social media.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You should do like the debunking. You should do like contraceptive myth, like once a week, like
really
little forms. Then, what you should do? You should like respond to the commenters. You know how people always have like the little comment at the top, and then you're like, that's actually trash advice, like blah, 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 blah. And then you're like argue, and then people start arguing again. Yeah, you can light up that algorithm.
This is perfect. I'm going to be hitting you up for tips.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic.
Yeah.
We're going to make a bunch of shorts. It's going to be come in and just talk trash.
You teach me how to do it. Great. I'm all in.
You should do something risque, like have like a contraceptive water balloon fight or something where like the condoms don't break and people just get black eyes.
I feel like this is very creative. You know what? I'm going to put those suggestions in for our next meeting.
If there's ever something I should cut from an episode, that was the line. Have a condom water balloon fight. Like, what an idiot idea. Like, what am I, 10 again? Or not 10, but maybe 20.
I mean, if you're out there spreading the word, we love that. So you're just talking about contraceptives. My gosh. We're on board.
Yeah, there was that. I saw that Jackass movie. Well, I'm not going to quote a Jackass movie. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So listen, we've been chatting a bit. Question for you though, before we kind of get to the end here, was there any legislation in Idaho that came out this last year that you were like, ooh, guys, pay attention to this?
I mean, we're always having those conversations.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're always monitoring, having those conversations, and luckily for us, I will say that we have more access in Idaho to our legislators than other states do.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I mean, it's kind of unique and really great. And so we have the opportunity to go in there and talk to them when we were seeing a red flag issue and just be like, hey, we don't think that this was the intent, but you should know. Here's what we're seeing. Here's the problem that we're seeing. So I would say that we're really lucky, and we're going to continue to do that. And we try and provide that information as well, both to them and to the general public about here's what we're seeing. So,
you know what I really love, and I don't know if you have access to this person, but if you had like a contraceptive expert that could come in and explain the mechanics of like the 5, okay, do you remember the 5 most effective contraceptive techniques or mechanisms, whatever they are? Do you remember that movie, Look Who's Talking?
Yes.
Oh my God, right? And she had the diaphragm. And I remember that was like her chosen birth control method, and she like didn't put it in. Of course, they had a kid.
Yeah.
But I remember seeing that movie and I was like, what is that? Right? Because my parents were not gauging what I was watching. And I was like, and I remember someone being like, oh, that's like, to be honest, swear to God, I'm 43. I still don't understand how that works.
Yeah.
I've never seen one in person.
Yeah.
It does. If it's literally something that just plops in there and you just hope that it like works, it's like, that seems crazy to me. Like, I don't know, but I'm a planner. I'm real cautious. But like all of these things where it's like, there's like a cervical cap too, right? It's like, that seems crazy. All of these things. It's like, could we just get somebody in here to explain how all of these different things work in this format, and then talk about education? That's something that could be spread around very easily and effectively to a large number of people very quickly. But
Absolutely.
Again, like, I don't even know how that stuff works.
Yeah. Well, and I know you're kind of anti-website, but I will say it is on the website.
Let me ask you this. Do you think the people that you're trying to reach in broad are like, oh, let me go find the contraceptive education website?
Well, now, come on. Yes, I think some of them do. We do direct some of them there because there are resources, right? Like if you're going and you're talking and you're Googling something about what is this device or that device. I mean, the nice thing is you do have a place that you can go to, and we do have those descriptions there, right? Like
full resource.
Yeah, we got a full resource
library.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we want to have that, but I like your idea, and we want to do that in communities, right? We want to show up to events and have those experts coming in and talking about it and answering questions, and hopefully what is a kind of low stress, not anxiety inducing way.
Do you have an expert in mind right now that you could hook me up with?
I might, yeah.
You might?
I might, yeah.
I think we should call out the doctor right now. It's like,
no,
Dr. Smith,
I can't do
come
that.
on in.
No, not without consent. No, I think I
Not
should.
without consent. Oh my God, I love it.
Yeah, we're going to do that first.
Yeah,
though.
awesome.
Yeah.
Listen, we've been chatting a bit. Have we missed anything? Like, I love everything you're saying. I get it. Like, this is something that is really important, especially in a state that does not approve of abortions as a contraceptive of choice or a contraceptive option. But like, it's not even it's birth control option, right? Because it's not a contraceptive.
It's not a
contraceptive is quite literally like you prevent pregnancy.
Correct.
Abortion is you terminate a pregnancy.
Correct.
Both used in family planning, right? One is absolutely not lawful in the state of Idaho, right?
Correct.
So like, what do you like? Is there anything we've missed here?
No, I don't think so. I think we've had a really good discussion around this, and if I could leave people with anything, it's keep it on. Go to the website. Go to the website. Really understand it, and like I said, we're available to be a resource, and we want to be a resource, and we want to take the mystery out of what a contraceptive actually is and how it functions. So we'll keep doing that.
Yeah. Well, I'm here to help. So just let me know. Thanks for
you.
coming in, and
Appreciate
let's
it.
do it again.
Okay, that sounds great. Thanks.